here we are at 2.9.1. We're going to install the front panel, which was located in box E. We needed some hardware out of our box G, which I've got out. We're going to need our 2.5 and our 2mm hex driver and the 12mm wrench for the nuts that go right here onto the front. Now, you're going to notice on this we've got our 2 idlers, and that's for the belt system right up here onto the front. We've got some mounting plates for the top, but we're also going to notice there is no bottom on the cutout right over here. That's going to be our bottom, and that's going to allow the front panel to come up on through and the wiring up through on that. So this one's going to be fairly easy to install. The major key is that all this wiring that we got doesn't get bound up or pinched or caught up into any of this as we tighten it up. I'm just going to go ahead and basically put it right behind those mounts, take this wiring and make sure it's towards the center. And I'm just going to bring this on in, put it up onto these brass screws, and just flex it a little bit. I've got it lined up, down, and make sure we're not pinching any wires, and that's pretty straightforward. We've just got some hardware along here that we need to install, and the 2 nuts right up here on the top. I'm just going to walk through and roll through those real quick. All right, and there we go. I've got all the hardware along the front, along the bottom, and the 2 nuts tightened up, which gives us our idler points over here, driving our idler points for these belts. At this point, we can go ahead and put in our Y-axis belts on this dual drive system. So I'm going to need to do a little explaining on this dual drive system and why we have it in place and how we can time and adjust it to each other. All right, so now that the front panel is installed, we're at 2.9.3 in the manual, which is our belt systems right here. So we have 2 little rollers on the front, which are our idler pulleys, and we have the 2 drive pulleys right here to our center motor. Now, I was mentioning before, we run 2 belts on this because if we just drove it from one side, as it's being pushed and pulled from this one side, over here it could get twisted or pulled, especially at high speed, and then you get this motion where I'll actually flex it a little bit. You can see this flex. And that's what we don't want. So we want to manage and push this from both sides so that we have a very accurate model when it's printing at high speeds. So we do that with belts on both sides hooked to this gantry, sliding it back and forth. So we have a single motor and 2 lock collars. Now we have to address 2 things. When we put timing belts in here, if the belts aren't exactly synced up with each other, you can actually build the twist into the frame so as it's moving back and forth, you've got this cock in it. So we need to address that timing issue to make sure they're in sync with each other as well as the tension. So we're going to be talking about that a little bit, and we're going to do that with these collars right in here. Now the procedure for this, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this so you can take a look at this. This system right here is identical to this belt system right here that we already installed. So the tensioning and the idler and how we adjusted this backwards, it's all pretty much the same. So I'm going to go a little bit quick through this, and now when you jump to the other side, all you're really going to do is slide the head over, rotate it around, and it's identical to this side. Literally, you're just flipping and doing the exact same thing to this side. So the belts on this is real simple. Once we adjust this out, we're going to retime this, move it back and forth a few times, and then what we need to do is recheck our belt tension, and what we're going to do is adjust to the not the weaker, but the lesser of the 2 of the belts, and then those will be in sync with each other. So let's go ahead and get started. Now we're going to need a few things. We're going to need our belts from bag G. These are the 2 belts right in here. We're going to need a 2mm hex and a 2.5mm hex, and our flat blade for the adjustment onto the belt tension itself. We're ready to get rock and rolling. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a belt on out. All right, now per the manual, I think we are starting with, what would be your left side, this side. All right, on this side. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and remove the cap right here, which is our lock side, not our tension side, and slip the belt in and get it run through. So I'm just removing these 2 screws, the same screws that we had right here. Right, with the screws out, I'm going to just pull this lock out, and just like the other one, I'm going to kind of wave it around in the light here. You can see that in the plastic it has these little teeth. Those teeth match up with the belt, the timing belt, right here with these teeth, and so all we really need to do is bring the belt and right to the edge of those teeth, and it lines up, and we're going to put it back in. Actually goes this direction, right there, just like that. I'm just going to slide it back in, reinstall the screws, and this is ready. Okay, now with that installed, per the instructions, what we need to do is take this little adjuster and make sure that we run this all the way towards the back on this one. On this side, it's just to the other side, but essentially we're expanding this open as much as possible, so when we bring the belt around and engage it right here, we can tension it and tighten that belt up. So we just do that by twisting this out, and it moves that block towards the rear in this case. So there it is right there. Just made contact, so I'm going to back it off just a little bit so I can get that block out. I'm going to take the belt up through the idler, bring it down, bring it through that same groove that was right over here for where that belt slides. You can see it's right in there, and it's around the idler. I'm going to bring it around the drive gear, and all we need to do is insert it right into there just like we did on that. Okay, so with this belt pulled around the motor, I'm going to pull a little tension on it. So this belt has tension because I'm pulling it towards it. I'm going to slide this little block out, and same as the other one, it has little teeth right onto the top. And all I'm going to do is lay this belt into this and start moving it over until I can get it back installed tooth by tooth. There we go. So now it's installed, but you can obviously see how loose that is. So we're going to go ahead and take care of that adjustment right there at that point. Let's go ahead and just reinstall these screws. Now this is great to know how to do this because you're going to be able to maintain this printer over time, upgrade the belt system. You know, if there's a larger upgrade kit or something like this, you're going to be able to know how to get into these belts, adjust these belts, replace these belts, and maintain the printer yourself. Okay, there we go. That's reinstalled. Now all we're going to do is go ahead. I'm going to start threading this over by hand to start taking the tension out of this. As I turn this, you can see this block is sliding this direction. Okay, we're getting close there. We can see it's a lot tighter now. And I'm doing the same kind of adjustment I did on this belt. Basically, I'm moving this kind of to one extent, so I've got this nice run of material right in here, and just giving it that twist. Right when it hits that 90 degrees, it should feel a little tension on it, and if you try to do a full 180 degrees, it should be extremely tight. You shouldn't be able to do that at all. So right there, that feels really good on that belt tension. I like it. I'll go ahead and leave that alone. Now, the next thing we need to do is disengage these two from each other, because as I'm trying to run this belt, with this belt installed, they're going to actually fight each other, especially since they're not timed correctly. We just do that by loosening up the collars. You can either do it on the shaft side or the motor side. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go ahead and do it on the shaft side right here. So I'm just going to loosen up that one set screw, and now you can see I'm turning this, and this is not moving at this point. This is free to move back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and do that same thing over here onto this side. There we go, and that's free to move on that particular one as well. So we've got that disengaged. Now all I'm going to do is do exactly what I just did on this side. It's just turned around and now it's onto this side. Just slide that over so I have access. Go ahead and thread this back out so it expands this all the way out. Since it's flipped around, it's now towards the front. And repeat the process. All right, so with that tightened back up into the belt, I'm just going to move this a little bit, make sure that we're engaged into our teeth. Feels good, and go ahead and start tensioning this up, same as we did this side. Now I want to get the tension on these to be as close as possible when we're doing it, so just use this as a reference. That feels about the same. Now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and slide this forward and back a few times. And what that's going to do is get these belts lined up and find their natural center to each other so that they're not mistimed to each other. So that this is going to be straight across. When I think that's good, I'm going to just take this and move it to a position I can get to these upper lock nuts for the collar and tighten it on down, which is going to re-engage this motor. There we go. We are almost done with this step. What we need to do next is check that these belts are timed well to each other and the tension is approximately the same. So what we're going to do is just go ahead and slide this to the front, bring it all the way to the rear. Now, bring it to the rear. If these belts are mistimed to each other, there'll be tension on one and slack on the other. So then recheck these tensions on the belt. If one is tighter and the other one is loose, and you can also touch the bottoms as well, the top and the bottom, it should be about the exact same. If it's not, that means it's a little bit mistimed. Go ahead and loosen these up, slide it a few times, tighten them back on down. Recheck the tension. This one came out really nice there. It's almost identical on both sides, so we're square on this particular one, but that is how you do this step. All right, we're ready to move on to the upper cover and top for the spool holder.